Hey friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping by today. I'm here with another new layout for the Pinkfresh Studio design team. And I'm going to start this layout with some of these dies. These are the Pinkfresh Studio Embroidered Blossoms die set. There's also a stamp set. I'm just going to be using the dies today. There are a ton of these really cute flowers and leaves and stems. And I like to cut these on plain paper and then paint them to match a collection. And so the collection I'm going to use is the Joyful Day collection. And so this is my little Spellbinders manual die cutting machine here. And so I picked out several sizes of the flowers and the leaves. And the paper that I'm going to use, it's not regular cardstock, but it's not watercolor paper. I have this little notebook. It says it's mixed media paper, and it's just a little notebook that I keep to practice and play around in. And so it's kind of watercolor paper, I guess you would say, but it handles watercolor really well. And so I'm going to use a couple sheets of that and create some plain white shapes here. And then I'm going to come in with the Pinkfresh Studio liquid watercolors and paint these up. And this is really fun to do because, you know, you can customize the colors, you can make as many as you want. You could do so many things with these, and I just find the die sets really versatile and easy to use. And these are great if you don't have a Cricut or a Silhouette Cameo. These are perfect. So that's all I'm doing here, is creating some of these fun shapes and get them ready to paint. I had to kind of manipulate them around a little bit to fit underneath my paper there, but they stayed put and it was pretty easy to do. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I picked out a couple of the pattern papers from Joyful Day, and I'm going to cut pretty much the same flower shapes on some of this pattern paper. I've got some of that periwinkle blue color. I've got a light, soft minty aqua color, and then a pink color. And then I'm also going to do another pattern paper. I think it's the back of the blue paper. It's white with some floral elements on it. So I'm going to kind of mix and match some of my own painted flowers and then some already made from pattern paper. So all I did was spread these out on a little paper towel here, and I'm going to spritz them with water so they're wet. And then all of the paint that's in my little tray here is all Pinkfresh Studio. I've already got the colors in there. And even when they dry, if I add a little bit of water to them, it reactivates. And all I'm doing is adding a little bit of color to the flowers. Since I've already got water on there, as soon as the tip of the brush hits the flower, it just automatically kind of sucks the color off the brush and it starts to spread and blend. And the paper does bend a little bit because it's wet, but you know what? I like when it does that, because whenever I add these to my layout, it's going to instantly bend and warp a little bit and give it some dimension and make it look like an actual flower. So I'm going to play around. I've got a pink one. I'm going to make a blue one, some yellow, just all the pretty colors that flowers are. And I'm going to do some mixing and matching. I'm going to mix some of the orange with the yellow, some of the purple with that royal blue, because I want to create that periwinkle color. This one is an aqua one. I'm going to wind up adding a little bit of red to the pink just to create a little bit of color variation. So these watercolors are very bold. It takes just a little bit, honestly, just a little dab will get you a lot of color. So you don't need a lot of it, especially when you're using small shapes like this. But yeah, so I just took some time to color these up. There's the red and pink kind of mixed together there. And I'm not looking for perfection. This is actually, it takes some time to do this, but it's very easy. I mean, the shapes are already cut for you. And like I said, all you do is dab some of the color on there and it just instantly starts to spread. And so you don't have to really put a lot of effort into doing this, but the end results always look pretty cool. So this is something I found. I don't even know why I like to do this, but if you want to soften up the colors a little bit while everything's still wet, I'm dabbing a little bit of white acrylic paint right onto the flower and then just using my brush to kind of spread it around. And it just kind of creates this light, soft marble effect. And I think it looks really cool. And that's just some cheap white acrylic paint I got from Walmart in the crafts section. So it's definitely nothing crazy. So I set those aside. I'm going to let those dry. And then I pulled out the ones that I cut from pattern paper. And I'm just going to jazz these up a little bit, doing the same thing, except this time I'm not wetting them beforehand. I'm just using the brush, adding a little bit of color to each of these to add a little bit of dark and lights. I didn't use any gesso or anything like that because I didn't plan on, you know, completely saturating these with paint or water. I just wanted to add a little bit of something. I wanted you to be able to still see the pattern of the papers and not completely cover those up. And then somehow I'm going to make these pattern paper flowers coordinate and work with the ones that I painted from scratch. And this was a fun challenge to do because, you know, you've got different colors going on, and my first thought was, okay, I've got all these flowers. Now how am I going to arrange these on a layout? I hadn't even got that far yet. So I just wanted to make flowers. So that's where I started, and I thought, well, we'll see where this takes me. So I've got the flowers pretty much done, and then I've got all of the leaves and the stems, and I'm going to do the same thing here. Just spread them out on a little paper towel and then go for all the green shades. There's a few different greens in the Pinkfresh Studio watercolors, so I'm just going to dab some of the green, dab some of the water, and then just very quickly add some color to these leaves. Very easy to do. I know I say this a lot, but you really can't mess this up. You're working with such small elements here, and worst case scenario, if you don't like how one looks, just let it dry and then go back over it with another shade, or, you know, you could add a little bit of white gesso to it to cover it up. But I love the different greens here. I think these make the leaves look very realistic, and they give lots of shading, lights and darks, and yeah, so everything's done here. Look how cool the leaves turned out. I love that you can still see some where it dried, and it really does look, you know, watercolored. But I think the flowers turned out really pretty, and I like the mix of the ones I painted and the pattern paper ones. It's just a fun color scheme. It's very bright and springy. So I decided to go with this spring photo of my daughter, and I like the fact that there's a lot of green, there's a lot of pink in her shirt, and then some periwinkle flowers behind her. And I want to do sort of an arc. I decided to do kind of a circular, kind of a half circle. So I found this giant bowl in my craft room, and I just did a light tracing around the paper there, around the bowl. And I'm going to put the photo, or the bulk of everything, on the left side, since the photo, if you look at her, she's facing the other direction and looking out. You know, her body is facing toward the left. So I want her picture on the right, because it's going to make it appear that, you know, she's looking across the page. And I always like to do that. So I'm just playing around here. I thought, you know, I'm going to put flowers along that arc that I drew and just see how it looks, and see if the idea I had in my head went with, you know, with the reality of it. And I actually kind of like it. I think it's different. I didn't want to create a wreath, as I made a wreath layout not too long ago for another team, I think, and so I just was in the mood to try something different. And, you know, I wanted to use a lot of florals, but just in a different way. So I do want to add something over to the left, since that's so open and white. So I'm going to wind up creating a little cluster like that. So I like that idea. I'm going to go with it. So I'm going to move everything out of the way and then add a little bit of clear gesso onto the background, because I am going to add a little bit more of the watercolor underneath everything. Not too much, but I'm going to go with mostly pinks and yellowy orange color. And see how bold that is? It's very, very dark. And it just depends on what you're going for. I didn't want to go too bold. So what you want to do here is add more water. If you start to use the watercolor and it's too dark right away, it's okay. See what I'm doing here? Roll your paper towel over it or use a napkin to dab some of it up. Especially if you use gesso. If you use gesso first, you're going to have lots more time to mop up something if you make a mistake. So you can kind of see here, see those dark spots underneath the wet stuff right there? That's because I didn't let my gesso dry completely. Yeah, and when it dries, it's perfectly okay. It did not tear the paper, but that was just me being in a hurry. I did not wait for the gesso to dry. I usually do, but I was just kind of anxious, and truth be told, I forgot that I didn't have dry gesso. I just started painting, and then I thought, oh, great. You didn't let it dry. So I pulled out my heat gun here and kind of gave it a little zap to let it dry a little bit. Still kind of wet, but I'm kind of trying to stay on the arc here, and a lot of this is going to get covered with the flowers. It's going to look totally different. I know it looks like a hot mess, but when I start to add everything back on top of it, it'll totally change the way it looks. I didn't want to go every single color. I am going to add some of the periwinkle blue splatters, but I mainly just wanted to stay with pinks and yellows on the background. And again, I love to keep a roll of paper towels close by because it's perfect for just kind of rolling right over something to dab it up or to lighten it up a little bit. So, okay, I'm going to come back and sort of try to find the pencil line again and start to build everything back on top of it and see how it looks. And I have a lot of open space in my photo, and a lot of times when I have that, I may try to overlap something on top of it. But in this case, I kind of overlap flowers eventually, but not a lot. I wanted the photo to kind of be open and let it breathe and not crowd it. Sometimes I do overlap things, but it just depends. It depends on the design. It depends on the layout. Depends on the photo. You know, every layout's different. Depends on my mood. Depends on the embellishments. Everything's different. I get different vibes from different photos and different designs. So, but you can see here now a lot of that mixed media, you can only see it kind of peeking out from behind everything. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and work on getting my photo ready. I'm going to add a little bit of tissue paper and some adhesive foam behind it just to give it something of a little subtle layer behind there. And then before I glue anything down, I'm going to work on adding some thread. This is just some colored thread from my stash that matches the colors. I'm going to add in some of the yellow, some of the pink, just along the way, underneath some of the flowers, underneath the photo there. This is that light aqua minty color. I'm going to add that up at the top. And I really like how this is looking. I like that it's just different. And I'm going to go with that darker periwinkle color, I think, right there. Yeah. I just love using thread because it just adds so much fun texture and little pops of color. Now, very carefully, this is going to take me some time, so I'm not going to film this whole part of me gluing all this down, but I'm just using my fine liner glue bottle there. I've got Scotch tacky glue in there always. That's my go-to glue. I love it. I get asked that a lot, but very carefully. I don't want to move anything because if I move it, I'll definitely not get it back where I have it. So very carefully got all that glued down, including the cluster over there on the left. And I love the dimension. You see what I'm talking about with the dimension of the flowers? Even though they buckled when I was painting them, it's perfect for flowers and leaves. I decided I needed a pop of that orangey yellow over in the cluster. So all I'm going to do is take my brush and kind of add some in here after the fact. I don't even think I have any gesso over there, but it's okay because I'm not adding a ton. I just want a pop of that yellowy orange color in that area because I didn't have any. And I like to make sure all the colors are spread out and represented in all areas. So I'm going to add a couple of little embellishments here. This is from the Joyful Day ephemera die cuts. I think it says Hello New Day. And then here's where I overlap the flowers. Just a little bit at the top and the bottom, but it doesn't cover up anything majorly important in the photo. This is another little die cut that says Happy Day. And I try a couple other things. I thought about adding those little pinwheels, but changed my mind. Title is going to be very, very simple. It's going to be Hello Spring. The most uncreative title for a spring layout, but hey, it's okay. I'm going to mix and match these Periwinkle Scripty Puffy stickers from Joyful Day with the rainbow block letters there. So that's going to be hello in multiple colors. Sometimes, you know, simple titles are okay. You don't have to get complicated with it. I'm going to use a pink Sharpie here. I didn't want to use black because everything's so soft, but I used a pink Sharpie and I just kept it simple. That is the end of this layout. Here's the final photo. I like how it turned out. It was fun to make. I just felt like the flowers were so fun to make and they're so, you know, busy on their own that I wanted to leave the rest of the layout white so everything could just kind of shine and pop off the page. And I hope this gave you some ideas to try. You know, you may take something away from this that you can use on a layout that you want to make that's totally different. And that's why I, you know, make these videos, just to give you different ideas to try. So I hope you were inspired. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to leave the Pinkfresh Studio link down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.